Hi everyone, this is Jeff.
And this is Russ.
When we first started Home on the RNG, we began it as a series of videos, and we produced quite a few before we realized it really works better as a podcast.
Whoops-a-doodle.
So we apologize if any of these early episodes have any visually heavy references that don't transfer to the audio medium.
Whoops-a-doodle.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to Home on the RNG.
Hello.
This is the episode Russ has been waiting for.
Yes. Jeff selected this game specifically because he knows that I love it.
It was kind of my way to guarantee his participation in the project.
It really was, and it did. It worked.
So, Russ, why don't you tell him what we're doing today?
Today we are reviewing Lufia and the Fortress of Doom. Doom.
I think it's pronounced that way.
Courtesy of Teddy. You'll be
doomed. So, we'll go ahead and jump into personal history.
Personal history, like most JRPGs. I had the original cart, played it on my Super NES back in the day, beat it many times. For this review, this is probably the 4th time that I played it all the way through beginning to end. So I'm very familiar with Lufia.
I ain't gotten on this first time I played it.
Yeah.
That's all I have to offer.
That is my contribution, is introducing Jeff to so many different wonderful old school games.
And newer ones.
Yeah.
You bastard.
Yeah. I introduced him to a lot of unique JRPGs.
And some of them take root in my soul, and then he stops playing them, and I'm left all alone with a fandom that I'm ashamed of.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
we'll leave that to your imagination. For now.
So, next we've got story and characters. So, I like the beginning of this story is actually the end of another story.
It is amazing. It is what captured my attention to this game the moment I put it in.
From what I understand, the second game is a prequel. So basically, you're playing when you first start the game, you're playing the end of the second game.
You are, yes.
You're playing the end of an epic quest to defeat evil. You are super overpowered with your characters. All the epic gear, and you go in and slaughter evil. The quest is the story is fairly average. It's evil ruled the land. It's vanquished in the prologue by the chosen warriors, and the main character that you end up playing is a descendant of one of the great warriors of legend. The world is at peace, and everybody's pretty lazy and complacent about it. The story's pretty straightforward. The evil is coming back. So first you have to go on a quest to find survivors or descendants of the first group of heroes. Then you have to find the ultimate sword. Then you have to build an airship so you can fly to evil's base and beat them.
Pretty standard JRPG fare, but very well told, I feel.
In terms of characters, which is going to be Russ's main area here, I just like that they were imperfect characters.
Yes.
Like, the fighter that you get is blunt and kind of a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, the hero is willing to consider killing one of the party members who betrays them.
Yes.
Like, these are not... Also, it's not a silent protagonist. He has dialogue.
I was going to say exactly that. Silent protagonist is fine, but I love a speaking protagonist. I like my characters to have their own personality and their own flaws, and to really hear what they have to say.
So anyway, go ahead. Tell us about your characters.
I reiterate what you said. Like, I really liked that they had a lot of personality. I like the way they banter back and forth between each other.
I think they play pranks on each other all
They
the time.
do. They play pranks, they bicker, they joke. It's, especially for the time, I know I say that all the time, for the time, but they have a lot of personality, and I really like the relationship between Lufia, the title character, who's one of your party members, and the protagonist. I think it's kind of a realistic sort of relationship that you would have with this childhood friend, and you're kind of attracted to her, but you don't really know how to express that.
My first impression of Lufia is she's kind of a bitch.
Well, she is kind of a bitch. But I like her for that. I think she's very strong for a female protagonist.
I do like I like the imperfectness, the realistic nature of the characters,
Very much.
because they have flaws. One thing I didn't like about the story, though, is it felt, the driving force behind it felt a little weak. Like, evil's coming back, except we never see evil do anything except, like, harass us and say things to us. We're going to come back and destroy everything. Really? You've destroyed Jack. You just walked up to me in town and said, I'm back! Evil will reign!
Well, yes, and that is true, but you also, as you learn in subsequent games, there's a very specific order to the revival of the Sinistrals, as the main
Yes, the Sinistrals are the names.
And there's a very specific order to their comeback.
They represent, what, chaos, power, death, and something.
Chaos, destruction, death, and terror.
Oh, okay.
Randomly. Because that's different
Yeah.
than the other ones.
I just...
Gades of destruction always comes back first. Well, kind of comes back first.
Because one of the rules that you're supposed to follow as a writer when you're writing a story, is this the most interesting period of these characters or this world's life? If not, you should be telling that story.
Right.
And for me, it's very clear that the second game, the prequel, that's got to be the most interesting.
And it is.
Because
I agree with that.
The game very clearly lines up where you need to go next. And I like that. It's like, okay, next you have to go north and then a little east to a town called this so you can get this. I like it when an RPG is fairly straightforward with its goals, so you're not wandering around going, oh God, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? Go to every town, talk to every person. But I just, even though the instructions were clear, I didn't feel the impetus. I didn't feel a threat.
Yeah, that's true.
Even though the game kept saying, there's a threat.
Right.
I didn't feel it.
You have to take the original hero's word for it, that this is the terrible thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, the biggest threat is when one of the big evil Sinistrals casually saunters up to you while you're in a town and informs you, oh, we're back, we're going to destroy everything.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the heads up. It was nice to meet you, sir. Have a good day.
But to play devil's advocate, you do see some destruction very early on. I mean, you do see that one ruined kingdom, so you know something's going to happen.
Oh, that's true. That's true. They did slaughter one kingdom. I forgot about that.
Yeah, there is
It's
one
like the first thing that happens,
early
and then they don't do
slaughter.
anything else.
Right.
They just pose. They stand around and go, aren't we evil?
Mhm. And I think I do agree with you that, you know, part of what I took away from that introduction with the different characters, the heroes of old, is I really wanted to know about them. You know, as much as I loved the characters that I was playing as, I really wanted to know what were happening to those dudes back then, because I felt like it was maybe a more interesting
They had a
story.
better story.
And it is.
Then the only last note I have here on stories is the game is pretty straightforward about your next objective until you hit that stupid 3 Towers quest.
Oh.
Jesus.
See, and I am totally the opposite. I loved the 3 Towers.
It's 3 dungeons. You have to go through all 3 of them. Then you have to go back through all 3 of them again in a specific order.
Right.
Like, I was just here. I just did this. Why do I have to do it again?
Maybe part of it is nostalgia. Maybe it's rose-colored nostalgia glasses. But I like the 3 Towers. And I think the boss that you ultimately fight at the end was great.
So, do you have anything else for story or characters?
Not really. I think the only thing to add is I think there are a lot of interesting NPCs. I think they do a good job characterizing a lot of the NPCs that only help you in your quest for a very brief period of time. You don't play as
the
them.
inventors are fun.
They are.
They have there's some wacky sense of humor involved in the inventors.
And I like even some of the random NPCs. I mean, my example is right in the first town that you start out as. There's this little story about this guard that's chasing the castle maids around. And then the first princess has this little story. If you talk to her, I think they breathe some life into.
There was apparently
Oh,
one sailor that has a girlfriend in like 3 different cities.
Right, exactly. It's kind of like a proto. If anyone's ever played like Lunar or the Trails in the Sky RPGs, anyone who's played that and knows what I'm talking about, it's kind of a proto version of that, where you have these characters that really do have a little life and a little story to tell.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Next we have the combat system. So the combat system here, like the last game we did, Great Greed, is also fairly unique. It's not a list of commands. The command options are set up like on a wheel almost, and you select the spokes.
The game, the whole game is very visual. I think it's very colorful. And even, like he's saying, the command system is like a colorful visual situation.
One thing I didn't like is, since it's a new system, you always have new names for spells, because everybody can't just call it fire, heal.
Right.
But this one takes it to a weird degree. For example, the heal spells are named Strong and Valor. How the hell am I supposed to know? Quick, somebody's injured. What do I cast to heal them? I'll cast Valor on them.
Yes.
That'll heal their wounds.
It's trial and error.
Well, luckily, the game is very nice in that there's a button that you hit, I forget which one, like R, and it basically gives you a description of what the spell does.
Exactly.
And eventually you will learn the spells, but like, Valor is a healing spell.
Yes.
And if you want to cure somebody from stone, you cast stone on them.
You do.
Like, I get that you want to put your own brand on the spell
Right.
names, but I feel like this game may have taken it a
I
little
believe,
bit too
isn't
long.
it fake that raises your defense or
Yes.
speed? I
Yes,
think it's defense is fake.
fake raises your defense. The spell names are just bizarre. It also does one of the things that I hate in an RPG, and that I feel is almost unforgivable in the Super Nintendo one, where if one of your party members kills a monster, then the next one that you told to hit that
Yes.
monster just whiffs. He just goes out and...
Yep.
Because like if you and I were fighting a group of people, and I knocked one of them down, would you then go to try and punch the guy I knocked down? Just like, oh, I know I just saw you knock him down, but I'm going to try and swing at the air.
Welcome to 80s Dragon Quest / Warrior. Yep, I get it. My understanding as a child was you're all attacking the enemy at the same time, and one of them gets killed, and then the other one.
But how can that
With
work
the
if you're
swing.
doing it at the same time?
That's my thing. This was my thought process as a little boy, as a wee child.
Well, wee Russ was wrong. Wee Russ was incorrect.
I get it. I get your frustration. I think I'm more forgiving.
Well, I have 2 other complaints. I'm sorry. Well, I'll say this. I did like you could buy arrows as just like an attack item. I kind of like that.
Right.
Just go to a shop, stock up on some super powerful arrows. Anybody can throw them out. That's kind of nice. Sometimes enemies were occasionally grouped together, but then sometimes not. Sometimes all the enemies would be in one group. Sometimes it'd be like 3 enemies in one group, then 1 enemy, then another enemy who should be with these 3, but
Which
he's not.
makes
He's over here now.
Makes it difficult using the group magic spells.
Yeah, there are a couple of times where you can attack an entire group with magic or with a bow.
With a bow.
Because a sword can't attack 3 guys at once, but bow and arrow can hit 3 guys at one time. So just the grouping seemed random, but not near as random. I never understood the attack order. I beat the entire game.
No.
I never understood how the attack order went.
I think it's just based on your speed.
Because I give everyone a command, and then before everyone had gone, I'm giving new commands. Like, I'm giving you your 2nd or 3rd command, and that guy hasn't done his 1st turn yet.
Right. It's kind of like the Final Fantasy ATB battle system, but you don't have any gauges.
Yeah, there's no
or any
list, there's
idea.
no...
Mhm.
I honestly, throughout the entire game, had no idea who was going to go win.
Yeah.
Ever.
I know it's all speed-based, but it is just...
Yeah, and I tried upping the speed of whoever seemed to be going the slowest, but the system never turned cohesive. It never gelled for me.
And I think in the same way, I go back to the ATB system because I think different... Like, once you select your command, then different attacks have different time periods before they then execute. Like, a spell might take a little bit longer than a physical attack, But again, there's no gauge to tell you when it's going to happen.
So now that I've been picking on it, what do you think?
I actually agree with pretty much all of your complaints about the battle system. I am a little more forgiving in the, whiffing the attack scenario, but I do agree it did not revolutionize anything as far as JRPG battle systems. It's pretty standard. If you've played an old school Dragon Quest / Warrior, you pretty much know what you're getting. But I agree.
There we go. So now we are going to move on to innovation. I just wanted to ask this. What is it with JRPGs and saving your game at a church?
Yeah.
Like, why do
that is?
It's such a weird connection. But there's so many of them that do that. If you want to save your game, you got to talk to a priest.
That makes it. No, that makes
There's
sense.
a difference between
I'm
saving
sorry.
your soul and saving your game.
You're confessing. You're confessing the sins you have wrought.
Dear Father, I've slaughtered countless monsters
Right,
today.
exactly.
Also, I traveled from one city to the... No, put down in your book that I went to this city. If you could just... No, I was at that city. I'm here now.
You're blessing the souls of the mini monsters.
I leveled
that you
up
have
3
slain.
times today. If you could... Actually, could you write down 4? No, okay, fine. It was 3. Like...
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird items in this game with no way of knowing what they do.
Yeah, some of them don't really do anything.
Like, again, it kind of goes back to the spell names, but even like the potions are a little weirdly named.
They are.
Items that change your stats are pretty common though, and I like that.
Right.
It's very common, but you have to be careful because like spell potion increases your mana, but mind potion increases your magic.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
You have to, if you're trying to assign these things to specific people for specific reasons, you have to be very careful. Great potion and
Great potion raises HP.
and then which one is strength?
And then power potion.
Yeah. So a great
I might
potion.
actually have that backwards. Power potion may raise HP and great potion may raise strength.
Yeah.
I've played this game 4 times and I can't remember.
This is the point I'm trying to illustrate.
But I like the potions because there's an abundance of them. I feel like there's an abundance of them in the game, and it really helps you boost the stats, boost each character's
and
stats.
it makes you
that are
feel like you
falling
have
out.
more control over your character's development.
Exactly.
I mean, you don't really. It's pretty straightforward because of the time.
Yeah.
But it gives you the feeling like you're customizing your
You
character.
can take your warrior character who's very slow, and you can give him all of the speed potions.
Yeah. I really like that it had smaller dungeons. Most of the dungeons were pretty small. It was... You never felt like, oh my god, I'm never going to find my way out of this before I die.
I didn't think they were small, but I also, and again, as
They were
someone who's played this,
manageable.
as someone who's played this so many times, I do feel like some of them are confusing. I mean, they are...
There's that one where you have to build a bridge. That one's irritating.
Right. They are a little maze-like in their designs, and the one with all the little warp points.
Towards the end.
Yeah.
Towards the end, they get a little bit more confusing. But for the first half of the game, they're very straightforward. I like when spell learning is just directly linked to level.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to worry about grinding a certain piece of equipment
Right.
or I'm finding a certain item in order to learn a spell. Just as you get stronger, you learn the spells you need.
Yeah, and I think it helps each character be a little more individual because they all kind of have different strengths and weaknesses in their magic.
One thing that really stood out to me is the old cave.
I was going to mention the old cave. I love the old cave.
It's got 7 different levels to it, but you can't go through all 7 when you first find it. It's right off of one of the cities, and the levels are level linked. So when you hit a certain level, it's level 12, level 30, then there's a guy behind a counter who says, hey, you can now go to level 6 of the old dungeon and find me this item. And the old dungeon has a lot of really good items and equipment.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's level linked, so you have to keep coming back. Luckily, there's a teleport spell to move around quickly.
Right.
So at first I thought it was a bottomless dungeon. I was kind of disappointed when I found out it only went down to 7.
Right.
'Cause
it was ahead of its time, and it gets there. Don't worry.
Well, just because a lot of JRPGs don't give you a reason to go back to the older places unless it's quest specific. This is a side quest where, oh, by the way, it's been a while since I've been to the old cave. Maybe I should go check and see if I've leveled up enough to do the next level.
Mm-hmm.
I need a different word other than leveled because I'm using the word level in like 3 different uses in the same sentence.
Well, a different floor.
Yes.
Going to a different basement floor of the cave.
So I really like that. I thought that was innovative.
Yeah.
And then one of the things I thought was the most interesting, there is a hidden town that specific. You know what I'm talking about.
I know
now.
exactly what you're talking
Go
about.
ahead, tell them.
Forfeit Island.
Yeah, and what is special about Forfeit Island?
Forfeit Island allows you to buy back absolutely anything that you have sold
Anywhere.
anywhere throughout the course of the game. So no worrying that you sold whatever, that powerful sword. That there's only one of in some treasure chest somewhere. You can buy it back.
Yeah.
In
Somehow
Forfeit.
every item you've ever sold shows up.
Yep.
It's you don't have to go to Forfeit to beat the game.
Exactly.
It's kind of a nice touch because I've never seen an RPG actually address that issue that way before. I mean, several games have like buyback options or whatever. I could even see, I think there's games where, you sell something and it goes into that shop's inventory.
Right. I think that's more common in Western games. I know
Yeah.
like Dragon Age and games like that have the buyback
Yeah.
option.
Although I think it's most often you sell something and it's gone and the game just doesn't let you sell
Right.
unique stuff that you can't win the game without. But the idea of creating this hidden city where you can buy back everything.
Yeah.
And then there's the one store in Forfeit Island. It's a store that sells nothing but junk. But once you step in, you're like latched onto by these 2 sales girls.
Yes.
And the game refuses to let you leave the store until you've bought some junk. Like you set foot in that store, that's it. You're locked in. They're going to natter at you. They're going to cry. They're going to whine. You have to buy junk to get out of the store.
It is moments like that that make me love this game because for all the flaws and things like the battle systems, it's little moments like that with the characters and the story that I think they spent a lot of time putting a lot of detail into.
Yeah, it was definitely an endearing moment. I do like that the game occasionally, it basically has cutscenes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not cinematic cutscenes because they didn't have the technology, but
Right.
it's basically, you walk into a town, and Lufia has a scene where she talks about these flowers and runs around in the flowers for a while. You don't see that often, to see actual cutscenes that early on.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the flowers ended up being
Very
significant.
symbolic of different aspects of the game. Yes.
I like that we've talked about the entire game without giving away the big plot twist.
Yes. Are you going to give away the plot twist?
I
I know the game is 20-something years old.
But you never know. We'll just call it the twist. It's fine. I wasn't surprised by it at all. It really wasn't a twist for me.
No. I think you can definitely see it coming, but I think, again, going back to the way this game tells a story, I think it was very masterfully told. I think the way that you're talking about cutscenes and the way that they had them, I think it was emotionally impactful.
Yeah, we might as well. I think we're in that. Oh, we got to do music before we can move on to final thoughts.
And I love the music.
Well, then let's talk about music. Talk about the music, Russ.
I love the music in this game, even though it is, just this standard Super NES. I don't know exactly what you call music from that time. But anyway, even though it's just a Super NES game, I think it has one of the best soundtracks of any Super NES game. I think that initial song when you're with the old heroes in the very beginning, you're exploring the island for the first time. It's very impactful. I love the music.
The music didn't impact me at all.
Yeah, music does not impact you.
Well, no,
whatsoever.
but here's the thing. But when you compare it to games like Chrono Trigger, for example, like I could start whistling tunes from Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
Frog's theme, for example.
But I can whistle tunes from this. That's what I'm saying.
And none of them stuck with me.
I didn't like the battle music. That's the only musical place that I feel like the game broke down. I thought it was pretty generic as far as battle music goes. But that Doom Island theme is just...
Would you like to see what I have in my notes under music there? It's just like that.
Seems okay. Well...
Do you want to read what else I have under music? Oh.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Oh, no.
That would be nothing.
That's all
but
I got.
You're not a musical person.
I'm really not.
No. And I don't know anything technical about music, but I do really pay attention to video game music. And like you're saying about Chrono Trigger, I can whistle tunes from Lufia. Just
Fair
like
enough.
you can whistle tunes from Chrono Trigger.
I think it's pretty much just
I'm not
focusing.
going to do it because I can't.
Kids at home,
I can't
if you
whistle.
all clap your hands at once and say, I do believe in fairies,
No.
then Russ will whistle a little tune for
I
you.
can't whistle.
Russ is not going to whistle a tune no matter how much you believe in fairies.
Unless the fairies grant me the power to whistle at this very moment, which I don't think is going to happen.
And now we've gone seriously off the rails. But it's my fault. I brought fairies into it. So we'll move on to final thoughts. It's mostly what we've addressed before. I liked the game overall. I liked the story, even though it seemed to lack the impetus. I did like the straightforward nature of the narrative. I liked a lot the first of all, starting the story at the end of a bigger story, and then going to track down what happened to those heroes. I liked that element where it's like, even though I wasn't with them for very long, I did kind of feel an attachment. They did cram emotion and everything into that first confrontation. So you actually do want to find out, like, what happened to this guy? Where's this guy?
That is one of the strongest parts of this game is the emotion. I feel that they pack into the story, given that you're just looking at little sprite characters.
Well, and I think part of that might come from the flawed, realistic characters. Because the characters aren't just generic cutouts. They're fighter, healer, mage. Most of the characters are more rounded in terms of their abilities. I was actually very surprised the first time the protagonist said something. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's my guy. Why is he talking?
They are kind of anime stereotypes, but it's to a level that you just didn't see,
Well, I don't have a lot of exposure to anime, really. So those stereotypes don't jump out at me. Most of my anime exposure is what you've tricked me into over the years.
I tricked you into a lot.
Been very little compared to the amount of anime that's out there. But overall, I liked Lufia. I did.
So A to F.
A to F. B minus.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, I had to take off of that combat system. If it hadn't been for the way, all my complaints with the way the combat worked, I could have enjoyed the game a lot more overall, and then the narrative was kind of lacking.
Yeah. I agree. Probably my least favorite thing about the narrative or the characters is that the Sinistrals are pretty much just evil gods who are just evil because they were created to be evil.
And they don't really have a lot to do with the plot. They're the backdrop. They're the threat. I mean, you do end up fighting them at the end, but your job is to prevent them from rising to power, which by necessity means they can't be a threat because they're not in power.
Yeah. But you prevent it, so you saved the day, and everything's good.
I have a feeling the second game is probably a lot more fun in that respect.
Well, I guess we'll see when we play the second game, won't we?
Yeah, I guess we'll find out since I've never played that. There are more Lufia games, right?
There are.
There was one for the Game Boy.
There's one for the Game Boy Color.
Oh.
Surprisingly. And then there was a fourth one which I have not played, which was for the Game Boy Advance, which I'm surprised that I haven't played it.
I am too, considering how much you love Lufia. And
I don't know if it was
too.
like a limited release or something, or I heard that it's not great.
So what's your score? We skipped your score.
Oh, my score. You put the minus on, so I would probably say A minus, and I would probably also give the minus just because of the really generic combat. But I give it an A just because I feel like it's a very emotionally impactful story. I teared up at the end. Now I have very visceral emotional reactions to a lot of media, so I'm not expecting the average person to have water in their eyes, but but anyone who's a little emotional about stuff, I would forewarn you.
I think perhaps if the ending there's another little twist at the end, and if it hadn't turned into a happy ending like it did, my score might have actually been a little bit higher just because it would have been more unique.
Oh, you wanted to see everyone suffer?
No,
forever.
not everyone. Just the hero.
Just okay, yeah.
Just there was a penalty, there was a price, but they turned it into a happy ending.
It was bittersweet. It was bittersweet.
It's not. It wasn't as bittersweet as it could have been.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Which is fine. I mean, happy endings are standard fare. I mean, I don't go around expecting a game not to have a happy ending, but it would have stood out to me more, and I would have given it points for originality had it not.
So I will say this for when we do play Lufia 2, you will love the ending.
I've seen the ending.
Oh.
We played Lufia 1. It's there.
Oh no.
Oh.
No.
Like I said.
I thought maybe you saw it on YouTube.
No.
You have not seen the ending of Lufia 2.
Okay, so
which
they
is
add
the prequel.
They add more in
There's
after.
There's a bit more, and you, based on your comments, will just be head over heels.
Well,
for that ending.
There's something to look forward to. So, did you have anything else?
I don't think I have anything else. It's one of my favorite games because of the fantastic story, the fantastic characters, and just being extremely clean and well polished, but with a flawed battle system.
I thought it was a decent game. I liked its
colorful.
quirks.
I like the colors. I like that the characters.
It was not a black and white game like Great Greed. That is true. It had colors.
They are color coded by their hair.
So for our next game, we've decided to prove to you guys that we are going to hit the big titles too. We're not just doing obscure Game Boy games and games Russ likes. So
even though I could go for that, but
so for our next title, we went ahead. We will do Final Fantasy at some point because we have to.
Even though it's a beating.
Oh, but we're going to do Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest 1 for our next game.
And you will get to see me interchangeably call it Dragon Quest and Dragon Warrior, just like at the drop of a hat.
I think that's going to happen with me too. But we can address all of that next time. So thanks for stopping by. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Home on the RNG. Russ would like to say goodbye to you all.
Goodbye. See you next episode.
See ya.
Home on the RNG is a presentation of Mad Centaur Productions. You can find Jeff on youtube.com/Centaur Productions or on Twitter @JeffCentaur. You can find Russ on Twitter @RussMac25. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's dangerous to go alone. Take this podcast with you.